observe the rules in terms of having entering the Vasa, the full moon of July, and exiting the Vasa, the full moon of October, and then we have Katina ceremony, a big offering ceremony afterward. And also during the Vasa, we have 2-week solitary retreats. So each of the monks gets a 2-week solitary retreat where they can stay in their monk's hut, in their kuti, in their cabin in the forest, and be in complete solitude. Just come down and get food. Some monks will choose to fast and not even come out of the kuti at all, or just stay in the vicinity of their kuti. And also we study the Vinaya during the Vasa. So the Vinaya is the training code, the precepts that we follow. There's 227 precepts. So we follow the 227 precepts of what we call the Bhikkhu Vinaya. And this is the training code for bhikkhus, for monks, for Buddhist monks. And there's different types of rules that we study. So there's a lot of rules that we have that they're rules for us, and they're also seen as blameworthy in the world. So for example, one of the worst precepts you can break, where if I broke this precept I would no longer be a monk, is killing a human being. And also out in the world, killing a human being is seen as one of the worst things you can do. You can go to prison for that. So that's a monk's rule that is blameworthy as a monk, and also blameworthy out in the world. So there's other types of rules which are just for monks, but people in the world wouldn't even care about them. So for example, say not keeping extra robe cloth for more than 10 days. That would be an offense in my training. But out in the world, it doesn't mean anything. You can keep as much extra cloth as you want for as long as you want. There's no rules against it. It's not a bad thing. It's not morally bad. It's just a training guideline so that the monks don't collect too much cloth. We don't collect too much stuff. And then there's some that are usually not seen as bad in the world, and they're rules for us, and they're usually not seen as bad in the world, but we're setting a good example by holding them. So, for example, I have a rule against drinking alcohol, and that's also not really seen as bad in the world, but it's good if you don't drink, if you're holding that fifth, and if you take the 5 precepts and you're actually holding them, then that's the 5th precept, is to not take intoxicants, not take specifically alcohol, but then not taking intoxicants. We extend it to other types of drugs. So, not drinking alcohol is an important precept for us. But then there's certain allowances around it. So, for example, if there's a medicine that I need some sort of medicine, but it has a base of alcohol, that's clearly allowed. It's clearly allowed by the Buddha. And then there's precepts that wouldn't really mean anything to anybody. So, say like playing in the water. Playing in the water is an offense for a bhikkhu. So to play in the water, but playing in the water, that's something that's normal in the world. And there's also an origin story. Every single rule has a story behind it. It's something happened in the time of the Buddha that caused him to formulate that rule. So, does anybody know where the playing in the water rule comes from? There was some monks who ordained early at a young age, and they were still very childish and playful, and they were on alms round, and it had just rained, and there was puddles, big puddles in the village, and they saw the puddles and they started jumping up and down in them and kicking the water at each other. And the lay people saw it and were uninspired, so then they went and complained to the Buddha that these monks are being uninspiring. They're laughing, jumping up and down in the puddles and laughing and kicking water at each other. So the Buddha said, okay, no playing in the water. So the Vinaya makes you realize how lifelike, how real the Buddha was. So and then one of my other favorites is there's a rule that we're supposed to clip our fingernails. It's a very minor rule. It's actually not one of the 227, but it's like a minor decorum etiquette type thing where monks who were living in the forest and were extremely aloof to society weren't looking after themselves properly, fingernails grew out really, really long. And then the lay people saw them, and they went and complained to the Buddha and said, Lord, there's monks with extremely long fingernails living in the forest. They look like goblins. So the Buddha said, okay, monks, if you cut your fingernails, that would be good. So you see, the Buddha has to say all these things. And so then they start cutting their fingernails, but then the rule had to be amended because then overly zealous monks cut their fingernails constantly and they started bleeding. And the Buddha said, okay, I allow you to cut your fingernails even with the skin, not further than he like has to explain it to me. I just think that's so funny that he has to explain it that little. So, but the Buddha also, an amazing quality of the Buddha is that he always took the time to explain these things. He never said, do it just because I'm the Buddha. I'm the Buddha and I said to do it. So he never says that. There's not a single case where he says that. Anytime somebody asks, why do you keep this rule, or why do you do this, he always explains. He always explains it. And he always takes the time to explain why. What's the principle behind it? What's the reason behind it? So the Buddha is the ultimate teacher because he's just willing to explain all these things. Even with something as basic as cutting your fingernails, he's willing to explain, no, you should do it this way, and this is how you middle way, you don't have to do it too much or too little. There's a rule against tickling as well. A bhikkhu is not supposed to tickle another bhikkhu. And that is because the origin story, some of them are a little bit implausible, but the origin story is there was the same group of young monks who were playing in the puddles. They're called the group of 17. And then there's the bad monks. They're called the group of 6, the Chivagya bhikkhus. And the group of 6 they would pick on the group of 17. So there's one day when one of the group of 6 is tickling one of the group of 17. Unable to catch his breath, he died. So the Buddha says, okay, no tickling. So we actually have that. That's one of our 227 rules. I can recite it in Pali. It's Anguli Padodakam Pachidiyam. It's a confessable offense to tickle with the fingers is an offense. So all of these things, it's very, very detailed, and there's a reason behind it. It's said in Pali, though, that we need this quality of faith, sila saddha sampanno. So sila is perfected through faith. And if we have compromised our virtue, our sila in some way, that is an indicator that our faith isn't yet that strong. Or if we have very strong virtue and we don't break it in any way, we don't compromise it in any way, from that we can see that our faith is very strong. And the word saddha, it's really my favorite word in Pali. Saddha has a connotation of, you can look at the Sanskrit. The Sanskrit is shraddha, which means faith in Sanskrit. But it's translated as faith, which is maybe not the best translation because the word faith is a very Christian word. But the word saddha or shraddha is the same root as the word shramana in Sanskrit, which is one who's striving for peace. So it implies peace. It has a sense of peace around it. It's not necessarily blind belief, although it's a little bit blind because we maybe haven't confirmed certain things for ourselves yet. But a lot of the Buddha's teachings, we have been able to see and confirm a lot of the Buddha's teachings. For example, when the Buddha says certain things are beneficial, we can see that a lot of those things are beneficial. But there's some of the things we can't see yet in the Buddha's teachings, whether he's talking about different deeper states of samadhi and so on, or wisdom and liberation. We can't verify those things for ourselves at this time. So we have what we call faith or saddha, that those things are actually real. So I think of it, rather than faith, I would translate it as trust. But then it has a sense of peace around it as well. There's a sense of confidence and a sense of peace. So I could extend the translation a little bit. I would say it's a settled trust or a calm trust. So saddha could be translated as calm trust or settled confidence. You've thought, okay, well, I've seen enough that I'm gonna trust this. And we can't really verify the teachings if we don't have that trust, because if we don't have that trust, we won't practice far enough to be able to verify the teachings. So, saddha is a quality that it's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of a paradox, because we want to confirm something before we have faith in it. But in Buddhism, if we don't have faith in it, we won't be able to confirm it. So we have to have this quality of saddha to be able to confirm the truth of Buddha's teachings. But in our Western mindset, we want to be able to see it before we have belief in it. But actually, we won't see it at all if we don't believe it. So the sense of saddha that's why the Buddha put it as the first of the 5 faculties. It's totally integral in the practice. We won't be able to complete our sila, we won't be able to put forth energy in the practice. We won't really be able to develop wisdom if we don't have this sense of saddha, this quality of saddha as a root. So settled trust, settled confidence, calm trust, those are all possible. Those are all possible translations for the word saddha. So I said a little bit more than I said in Thai.